Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's up, DB?
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah. I have. I need to hurry up and get myself to a bye week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
A little run on empty.
Yep. Yeah. I decided to play a freshman game last night. Old 7:00.
Yeah.
So
How'd that go?
They lost in overtime.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't even know if I want to get into that, but
Did they react to it better than Nebraska did?
yes and no.
Okay.
So I'm coming back from Big Red. I'm coming back from Big Red wrap up.
Yeah.
And I'm driving, and I'm obviously trying to get there. And it's just right over here at Papio South,
Mhm.
right? So it's
Not too far from Lincoln.
No, it's on the way home, and it's whatever. And this thing gets ready to get to overtime, and so I'm trying to get updates. Well, let me ask you this.
Yep.
Given the dynamics of our family,
Okay.
right? At what point do you think, like, Jay should be able to relay a situation?
Mm.
You know, like
how often during a game?
No, like do it in an efficient manner.
Mm.
You know, like for instance, say 6-6 third quarter, 5:24 to play, or something like that.
I mean, that seems doable.
No, like how long do you think stuff like that takes?
To actually text it?
To be able to know how to talk to, like.
Oh, gotcha. I would.
She's done this a long time.
Yeah, I would think that should be ironed out by now.
Okay.
I would think.
I had to move on to Mike Jernigan. So.
Oh, super happy.
I was losing my mind.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, no sense in.
This isn't.
I just.
Yeah.
Like this, simple, right? Just down, distance, time.
Yeah. Score.
Occasionally, you can give me the score.
Yeah.
So we got past that. So I get there and I'm watching and 6-6, and I think there's 3 minutes to go.
Mm-hmm.
Tough game. I mean, Papio South, it's a good tough game, and I see this receiver make a heck of a play.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet catch. And he had a 65-yard punt return for a touchdown too. So I'm like, golly, man, I watch this dude.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only score of the game. So he catches the ball, and on his way to the end zone, he does something weird, like with his hand. All of a sudden, I see the back judge just throw this flag like about 55 yards, even though they were on the 19, so it wasn't really 55.
Got that cannon.
Yeah, but he like threw it right at him.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what happened?
Was he doing the too small thing?
This little dude makes a catch and hits us with the peace sign.
Oh, with the Tyreek Hill?
It's real quick.
Yeah.
Just real quick. I'll show it to you. Just real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not only did they not get the result of the play, which was because it was post the score, but I believe the high school rule is probably like the NFL rule, where if you do it on the way,
yeah,
it doesn't matter, right?
It's pre or post goal line, right?
So then I was, I'm like, golly, yeah, that happened to be my son.
I was waiting for that.
So, West Side's got a really good. They got another really good player. He's playing running back, and he's a hammer. Like he's gonna be legit. And so they go to overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, never mind. So, Papio South's got a chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
It's under 2 minutes. They get the ball back. They fumble on like second and goal.
Oh, okay.
And so anyway, back and forth, and somehow Westside gets the ball. They try to score from their own 10. Fortunate to get out of that deal, so it gets to overtime. And so you get the ball from the 10, and you go in, and 3 straight runs.
Yeah.
So it's 4th and goal from the 1 in overtime. And I can see the handoff. and there's this big pile, and some of the kids are saying touchdown, and refs run in, and man, about full 1/1000th of a second later, I see this Titan just come smoking out of the pile. I'm like, this dude is steaming. Like, where's he going? Oh, shoot. He's got the ball.
Yeah.
He goes 99 yards. And we're like, so nobody really knows what happens.
Yeah.
The officials come together, and it's like, after something, player was not down, touchdown. And the fans go like,
lose their minds.
Ham, right? And meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself, it's 9:40. I'm only 8 minutes from my house. Do you have to get on the bus to go back to West? So I get back home, and it's like 10:10. And I call Coach Samanji first. No, I called Caleb first. I go, I said, I need some advice. Like, what would you want to hear? Like, I'm kind of mad, but I'm kind of not.
Yeah.
Did a lot of other good things. I called Coach Samanji. I said, I want to light this little dude up. He's like, nah, I had the rest of the, so I had to give context. DJ called, was like, hey, man, give grace. So I was like, I didn't sleep. And to boot, I watched a team that I hate almost more than any other in professional sports, certainly in the top 3 in baseball.
The Fathers.
In the game on a triple play. I said, isn't this about a something? Man. I can't wait to go to work tomorrow.
So I saw this stat.
Do you realize there are only 3 back?
I saw this stat that there's been about like 700 no-hitters or something, or 300 no-hitters.
This is a Matt DeMarinis thing.
Yeah, and then like 300 back-to-back home runs, 300 triple plays, and then there was another one. And the total in Major League Baseball history, the Padres are the only team to do all 4 in the same season.
It's crazy.
Like,
I'm like, these guys darn fathers.
Yeah, you love them. Those are your guys.
No,
those are your guys.
No, I absolutely do not.
Big Southern California guy. You like the entire bottom half of the state.
Yeah, big Manny Machado guy. Love me some Tatis. Oh, my gosh, do I love him.
I hate Manny Machado.
Oh, God, it's awful.
I'm still mad about Dustin Pedroia.
So now I'm like, if these little sons of guns get in here and cause some problems.
I mean, this is going to be a problem.
I'm like,
it's going to be a problem.
Well, I don't so much worry. Like, they're notoriously chokers in the postseason, but I don't want the opportunity.
As opposed to the Dodgers, who have famously.
Well, at least we get to the World Series. No, we may pee it down our leg. Okay, I don't want to hear about that. But it's like, But the good news is, if you're a Braves fan, you were only a half a game out.
Yeah. You got.
Now, as if you're a Braves fan.
I'm not.
If you're a Mets fan, you're a little weird, and if you're a Diamondbacks fan, you're wondering how they just kicked the field goal to make it 10-0 on us.
I'm a Red Sox fan, so my season's been over since they lost like 8 in a row.
Well, it's a heck of a deal you're going with Toronto. I mean,
6 weeks ago,
feel like you can show up anytime.
They were like 10 games over 500, and then they're like, hey, we're going to lose 11 out of 12. Peace.
Yeah. You having an unnatural allegiance to losers does not like you.
Where did that come from?
It's my man, Cat Williams.
I know who it is, but where did it come from?
It's a deep pull from Shay. Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a good one.
You have a natural allegiance to losers.
I mean, I don't.
An unnatural allegiance to losers.
I feel like I feel like I'm the only person in the state that expects people to win.
So, was this not getting strange?
It is
because you're talking about Nebraska, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the fans. I'm talking about the players. I'm talking about the coaches. I'm talking about everybody.
It's
gotten weird.
Okay, so I'm thinking about this in this. So first of all, my buddy calls yesterday.
Yeah,
I got Zoe at the dentist. It's 1:00. Thank the Lord, the dentist is close to her school. Whatever. So he hits me with, and I won't put him out there, but he's like, hey, kind of this press conference is kind of taking on a weird tone. It seems like media asks the players harder questions than they do the coaches.
See, and I didn't pick up on that.
So I'm going back to I'm like, okay, I got however many minutes while this little girl is back there. And by the way, there was this badass family in there. This lady had Like, I mean, good on her. Maybe that's the time she had to get everybody in. But she had like 4 kids, and 3 of them were under 5. And I mean, grade A terrors. There's a playroom back there. They were tearing this thing up, torn up paper. You got magazines and stuff like old school highlights. I'm like, you think our kids are bad? Like, nah, I shouldn't say this. Anyway, it's a circus.
Yeah.
So I'm going back, and I went outside. I sat in the parking lot. I'm like, let me just go through this thing. And I wasn't vibing. I don't necessarily know if the questions were tougher.
I don't think they were.
I just didn't.
I liked the players' answers better.
They showed some maturity.
I did. Yeah.
Like, they showed some. If I'm MJ Sherman, I probably leave that presser, and I'm like,
what's wrong with you people,
man?
That's what I thought. That's what I thought he felt.
So I'm thinking about this in the show. I'm like, is this a me thing? Because I didn't want to come here and just be like, bleh, and we got to talk to Mitch Sherman, and I'm mad at him, and I'm not really mad at him, but I do want to ask him some things. Like, I want to be like, hey, Mitch, permission to treat you like a hostile witness. But I'm not, right? Because I think he's smart, and I kind of want to walk through some things. And I called him the other day about like Pro Football Focus and stuff, and where they get the analytics and what they refer to as blitzes and how many pressures, because we just regurgitate things. Yeah. And that part drives me crazy. So I'm like, okay, do I need to lighten up? Am I being too? But then I let myself off the hook this morning in the shower, because I'm like, you know what? If we knew how to handle information, I wouldn't feel like that. I wouldn't care so much about what information is actually being said. Right? If we were if we were a little better at individual thinking, it wouldn't bother me so much who's saying what and how they're saying it. But when you're receiving information, I think there's like this fiduciary responsibility of the people giving the information to either be as accurate as possible or say, in my opinion.
So here's the problem.
So that it's driving me crazy.
No, I agree. But here's the problem.
We don't know. Let me just hang on.
All right.
Because what's happening is you get this weird vibe, right? It's like,
which was definitely present at the press conference.
Are you feeling it?
I am. Yeah. I thought the whole thing was very strange.
Okay, so on Monday, and I don't want to be right. I want to get it right. So feel free to check me, 888-638-4876. So Monday, right? We're having this conversation. I'm clearly not happy, right? I want to acknowledge that Illinois was well prepared, but we were saying a bunch of things that I didn't think was actually the case. Now, not everybody has to agree with me. So I go back and I ask. I'm like, hey, on this, and this, so I want to make sure I'm not crazy. So I say, I don't know if this is the former player. I don't know if this is the coach. I don't know if this is the it's probably more the teacher in me, because this is my personality. I always say I rather be right than be well liked, right? Or I'm in the solutions business, or I don't like to just talk about what the problems are. I like to talk about solutions. Like, I've done this my whole life. So Monday, I'm like, hey, this is one of those deals. You got to watch the film. You got to be accountable. Figure out your 1 of 11 and go back to work. You have another opportunity.
Move on.
Like, move the frick on.
Yeah.
Right? It's Tuesday, and we're still rehashing what happened on Friday, without like talking about Purdue. And I'm like, I hope we're good enough emotionally to press pause and move on.
You mean as a team?
As a team.
Yeah.
Because that's what I care about, right? Like, that's what I care about. You can't keep bringing me back to here when I got to go here. Done enough wrong in my past where sometimes I'll just say to said individual, hey, listen, I can't go back and get that, but what I can do is be better going forward.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's how this team has to function. Because you know what happens? Then you start having these conversations that people say where it's like, oh, man, are you losers lose? And like, sometimes you have to allow the process to play out without dragging people back into your mess.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I mean?
And not every game can be an indictment
or a referendum, right? It's like
that. That's why I asked. Do you remember when I asked Tim Verghese last week?
Oh, TV, what did you ask Timmy Verghese?
I go, are we just going to do this every week? Are we going to do this every week with Illinois? It's the first conference game. I don't know. Purdue. Oh, it's the first road game. Oh, Rutgers, they're going to want to make it ugly. Ooh, Indiana, they're better than we thought. Oh, Ohio State, they're the big bad boogie man on the block.
I remember.
Like, we're just going to do this every week?
I remember that.
Because I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's good for anybody. And you're right. I actually feel like as a fan base, because that's all I can really talk as. I didn't play, I didn't coach, not football at least, right? I can only speak for the fan base.
This is you as a fan?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, obviously I've got this other role as, radio person, whatever, but I feel like a lot of how I approach things is as a fan, because that's my frame of reference. As a fan base, we have got to be better, because I do think it affects the tone of the team. I think our attitude has a real impact, because every time this happens, and man, I can't tell you how many texts I've gotten, and from people I genuinely like. This isn't even like me and Denny or whoever, right? Like,
you might like Dennis.
I might, but I don't know him.
I don't think Dennis thinks he would like you, though.
Probably not. That's fine.
Although Dennis hit me with something last night, I was like, man,
I'm not for everybody. But as a fan base, like, we have to do better, because I can't tell you how many texts and messages and whatever I've got about like being afraid that, I've seen this too many times. Nebraska's going to lose to Purdue and the season's going to go in the tank. And I go, what? Like, I get that you've got PTSD or trauma or whatever, but what about this team? This specific team makes you think they're going to lose to Purdue? Because if I'm being honest, it's not a damn thing. Purdue is bad. Okay, let's start there. Purdue's not very good. Now, if they go and do lose to Purdue, that's a valid time to start being concerned. That's fair. But until that happens, all we're doing is hedging our feelings, which does no one any good, right? All that does is hedging only sabotages future success, because it doesn't actually prevent the thing you're trying to avoid.
What was the tenor what's the tenor you felt listening to the presser yesterday?
It just like tight. I don't know if that's the right word, but like, it was for certain people. I thought MJ Sherman was like, hey, we got to move on. Let's go.
He got asked the same question,
and he gave the same answer. What do you want us to do when you get punched in the mouth?
Three different, or
what do you want to do when you get punched in the face?
It was just kind of weird.
You put your hands up and you keep fighting. You get punched in the face, you put your hands up. You asked me a question Monday or Tuesday about recruiting winners, right? And I said, Randy Shannon tried this thing at Miami, and I thought it was interesting. You know what I kind of landed on? Because we've talked about this before. Rather than recruiting winners, I'd rather recruit guys that have a history of dealing with failure well, right? We've talked about this with baseball players. You like quarterbacks that have played baseball because they can deal with failure, right? Maybe I go look for guys that have come out the other side.
Or I do kind of gravitate. That's fair. I do kind of gravitate towards people that have been through something.
Yeah. Like, give me guys that have gotten to the other side of something, right? Because not everybody has. And that's okay, not everybody's had that opportunity to, but especially when you're building a program like Nebraska, where you're going to have some ups and downs, give me the guys that have gotten to the other side. Because what I saw from MJ Sherman was a guy that came from a winning program that's like, what are we talking about? We lost to a ranked team in overtime.
I thought he was exceptionally good yesterday, too.
Like,
I wondered what his fit, like, if I could ask, like, I want to just ask him, and I won't, because we got these emails, because of the team playing. They ain't messing around.
Yeah.
No, there is definitely a way to travel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. I need to be through security and on that plane.
Yeah.
Seated by 12. Do you know what time the bus is leaving from the stadium?
What time?
11:55.
Good luck.
Think they don't want us out of the way?
I think they might.
It's business trip.
That's right. But I'm just,
there ain't no hobnobbing.
Like, you have MJ Sherman, who's been at a winning program and looks at it in a certain perspective of, hey, like losing one game is not the end of the world. You lost to a ranked team in overtime.
Mhm.
That's not the end of the world. Do you have to learn? Yes. Do you have to get better? Yes. Like the analogy that he gave, hey, if you got punched in the face, put your hands up a little bit better, right? Put your guard up a little bit better, but keep fighting, right? Every time you get punched in the face, that can't be the end of the fight,
Right.
because then you'll never win anything. And I have such a hard time as a fan talking to other fans who aren't open to the idea that things can change. That's what bothers me the most, is just not being open to just because Nebraska has wet it down their leg in the past, right? Which they have. Like, I can't go back and get that, though. Matt Rule can't go back and get that. Dylan Raiola can't go back and get that. MJ Sherman can't go back and get that. All they can do is go play Purdue. And if you're not willing to be open to the idea that, hey, maybe it is different this time, I get that scary, because what if they lose, right? What if they lose? What did Coach Rule tell us? If we die, we die. If we die, we die. But guess what? What if you win? Because if you win and you're sitting here hedging your feelings, you're not even going to enjoy the wins, right? You're not even, like, I knew people that weren't happy when Nebraska's up 28-0 halftime against Colorado because they're scared of the bad thing that might happen. You can't enjoy whooping Deion's ass on national TV because you're scared of the bad thing that's going to happen. Like, that's one of the most satisfying moments in the last decade of Nebraska football. And I know people that couldn't enjoy it in the moment.
Maybe it's like this across the board. I'm just listening. Maybe we're saying it wrong. Instead of saying, why can't we have nice things? Maybe it's, when are we going to learn how to receive nice things? Maybe that's what it is. And that's across the board. It's not a fan, like,
not just a fan.
Yeah, it's a when can we learn how to receive nice things?
But I do think,
because I actually think that may be part of it.
I do think the fan tenor matters with the actual team. We'll get to that and more and set up the lineup here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We've got some interesting comments so far in the YouTube chat. We appreciate you joining us. You can also give us a call, 888-638-4876. You want to get to Husker Dominator or Liquid Thoughts first?
You pick. Let me go back and okay. I know what you're talking about with Dom. I didn't see Liquid Thoughts. Talk to me.
So we'll do Liquid Thoughts first because I don't think it takes as long. So I don't know, he, she, whoever says, Ravi making it sound like Nebraska fans are survivors of domestic abuse. Sure, they don't need therapy sessions with YWCA. That's how we're acting, Liquid Thoughts. That's the problem, because it's not that serious. Like, winning and losing is serious. Nebraska football is serious. I get that it matters.
Okay, I'm not letting you off the hook, and I know you're talking about. My original thoughts were from the media-player relationship.
Yes. And then I brought in fans.
And you said,
I brought in fans.
I can only talk about this from a fan perspective.
Yes.
So we may be saying two different things.
Yeah.
But with that, carry on.
Like, that's kind of my point, Liquid Thoughts, is we're acting like we're the dog at the pound that had an abusive owner before. Now we don't trust anybody. Like, but guess what? If that dog never learns to trust anybody, because I don't want to make light of domestic abuse, so I switched to animal abuse, which is not much better. But like, if that dog never learns to trust anybody again, it's gonna have a really hard time finding a home, right? What do you like? The dogs at the pound that aren't friendly have a really hard time getting adopted. I've seen it. One of mine was like that, right? But he opened up to my wife before I met her. Now we have a great dog, right? But you have to open yourself up to the possibility of being hurt again. And I get we're making this way more dramatic for football than we are for like real life stuff, but it's the same type of mentality.
Do you think we're caught off guard by the amount of candidates we have?
Yes. Because we talked about this before. I don't think, like, we're so used to trying to squeeze blood out of a turnip with coaches that when the coach is just like, here it is, then we're still trying to squeeze too hard.
They were, and maybe it's because of what's at stake. The demeanor was definitely different.
Do you think the vast majority of this state still thinks Matt Rule is the guy?
Yes.
Do you think the vast majority of the state thinks Dylan Raiola is the guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you still think the vast majority of the state thinks Tony White is the guy?
Yes.
Okay. So in 3 critical, I'm not going to ask about Satterfield because I already know
Okay.
how a lot of fans feel about him.
Okay, that's fair.
But in 3 critical spots, Nebraska fans think this is the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we so scared then?
Mm.
You got the head coach quarterback relationship, arguably one of the most important at any level of football. You got a great defensive coordinator who we are sure is leaving after this year as a fan base. That's the thing that we're afraid of, is that he's so good he's going to leave after this year for a head coaching job or whatever else. We were thrilled to death that we kept him for an extra year. So if we think these guys are that good, what are we so afraid of?
Mm. No, I'm with you.
We're letting past things that have nothing to do with this team impact how we feel about this team. And then Husker Dominator says you guys are beacons of negativity because people think you have the answers to a lot of their questions. I don't think people are as negative in general as you think. Husker Dominator, I'm just going to...
Again, I do want to separate 2 different discussions.
Media and coaches.
Yeah, I'm talking about the
fan perspective,
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I interact with more Husker fans because people seek us out.
Yeah, because I'm not necessarily talking about fans. But
I am, but people seek us out with comments, and that's great. That's part of what we do, right? Is we have these conversations with people. But
Brandon said this ain't it.
I see more. Usually, I see more people having these conversations than most people do with their group of friends. Like a lot of people interact with us with their thoughts and our thoughts and whatever. So yeah, I probably do see more negativity because people seek us out to have these conversations.
Mm.
And so, but I don't know how you listen to us and think we're negative about the program. I don't. I think we've been as positive.
I don't think that's what he's saying, but
I'm not sure.
So
that's how I took it.
So when he says beacon,
mm-hmm.
I think he's saying
we amplify the negativity.
No, I think he's saying if
mm-hmm.
people are going to be negative, we're going to attract it because we will have answers. So we hear a lot of the negative questions. That's what I think he's saying.
Maybe that would make sense.
That would make sense to me too.
Yeah,
because that is why I talk to people like Dennis.
When I hear
he actually asked me a question yesterday, I'm chomping at the bit to ask,
mm-hmm.
but I don't know who to ask it to. You know, he asked me yesterday.
Who? What?
He said something or nothing. Rule seems to handle Raiola with kid gloves. Makes a lot of comments like Raiola didn't freeze up and was just out there playing. He fumbled twice, missed a wide open TD, and took 40 yards of sacks in crunch time. That doesn't make sense. So, full disclosure, 100% honesty, I was a little bothered. I was more than a little bothered that I felt like Dylan was getting a pass. I said to you, am I going to be the only one that says anything about not getting rid of the football or ball security in the pocket or not being able to play catch? There are those 5 to 6 plays that a quarterback's going to make.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of felt like that. And so I had to think about it last night because I was talking to Sip as he left. By the way, Sipple had some nice pleated slacks on last night. I mean, he looks sharp. And I'm like, when Coach – so I asked him that question.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, Coach White validated at the podium yesterday when you said he has a freshman playing his ass off. And I said, Sip, he's saying that, taking ownership of the defense, but he knows Dylan's exceeded expectations. So if you're a coach
mm-hmm.
and you're like, okay, we're getting good quarterback play.
Mm-hmm.
This is what this looks like.
Certainly good enough to win.
That's how you're going to feel, though.
Yeah.
You're not absolving him of.
No. You're not absolving. Like,
do you know what I mean?
No one's saying he's played perfect.
So that's
right?
so that's kind of what I landed on.
And I landed. So
I don't want, and I didn't, and I had to defend this the other day. I don't want people to hear Coach Rule say he played loose and have that be synonymous with he played well, because that's not what he said.
No.
And I even said that on Monday.
He's talking about a mindset.
He's just talking about how, hey,
he's not afraid to lose.
I didn't do what I was supposed to, but I will the next time.
Next play. Like when I hear, because I I don't think he's handling with kid gloves. I think in the quarterback room.
So the reason that got my attention was because I kind of felt like that at first.
Yeah.
So then I had to process through it.
So I think
I was like, that's interesting.
If you're focusing on kind of the granular play-by-play, you could be like, oh, why isn't Coach Rule calling him out, things like that. But I think it's because Dylan already has the mindset that Rule's looking for.
So, and the other thing is, I don't watch Coach Rule on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Does your sphere feel like some of how he acts on the sidelines contributes to their delinquency?
Yeah, this week was the first time I had heard that.
Okay.
Was that they thought he was a little high-strung too.
Okay.
So that it was maybe filtering down to the players. We used to hear that about Bo all the time.
Yeah. So I kind of wonder.
But this is the first time I heard about
this.
Rule.
Is coming from a guy that, while I do think, I think I can only think of like probably 3 or 4 guys on an officiating crew would be like, man, that guy grinds my gears.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, I have tremendous relationships with officials.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple in particular that I don't even like.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna fake that either, right? So this is coming from a guy that has that kind of perspective. I'm thinking, at what point could I continually keep my cool in high pressure situations, and how much would you pay me to have to change my natural disposition? Because I'm just being honest, right? It's like the play that he thought was the late hit was right in front of him,
and it was a late hit,
and he had seen some other kind of what I would call chintzy calls.
Yeah,
right,
less obvious for sure.
And so I'm having this conversation with Bill and B-Mac, and I'm like, Nebraska hasn't been the beneficiary of any 50-50 calls late. I wonder if this is going to start to escalate.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I saw that and it was just that game, or is it all the time? Because I don't watch that. So I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't think it's all the time. I don't watch
but
it.
But you did hear that. You did hear that.
But that was brought up this week.
Okay.
I will say, a lot of fiery coaches that win a whole lot. Fred, hang on the line here. We'll take your call when we get back on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
That sounds like a guy I would receive instruction from.
100%.
As we welcome you
back. That's a guy I take advice from.
As we welcome you back to the Pillar Exterior Studio Stage.
Nailed it.
Not stooge like you wanted to call me.
No, I would never.
I know you did.
I would never.
Guys, Brian Christopherson from Huskers 24/7 at 8, Andy Kendeigh at 8:30, and Mitchell. You think Mitchell is his government? Let's just go with Mitch.
Probably.
Mitchell?
It probably is. I don't know what else Mitch would be short for. Maybe it's not short for anything.
Mitchum?
Like the
Mitch. Oh yeah, Mitchum.
Like the deodorant.
Is that a deodorant?
Yeah, it's like an old school, like old man deodorant.
Mitch Sherman will join us at 9:00. So I mean, listen, we're getting some vocal minorities. My man John in the old Twitter box, text box says, "Oh, thank you, Mitchum," like Paul.
Mm-hmm.
John says fans are negative. I'm going to try to get away from the fan thing because I don't know really. I do, but I don't. Right? Because I kind of think Husker Dom is right. I'm going to get that.
I think we've got some Schadenfreude going on here with the fans.
I don't know what that means.
It means that the way that they're acting and then the way that they describe how they're acting are not the same.
So my man JL says, fans are negative. He said, I've had multiple people that have the nerve, this is how he talks too, have the nerve to complain about the passes that DR missed in the game. I said, you do realize if he completed those balls, he would have been completing 95% of his passes. Do you think maybe your expectations are a little high? Oh, yes and no. Yeah, like, I do think you want to be able, I don't care if you're a freshman, a sophomore, a redshirt freshman, really, really good, not very good. There's still the same 5-6 plays every game.
Yeah.
Right. That you're like, got to find a way.
Well, and
so again, I don't know if the expectations are too high, but I would say you asked me 2 weeks ago and my answer is still the same 2 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
He's better at this stage than I thought during spring and fall camp.
And there's still stuff he could do better.
Correct.
Like, so Shane on, not that Shane.
Shane 402?
Yeah. asked on.
He actually asks.
He has some good questions.
He asks good questions.
And he asked a good question.
I'm vibing with him because I think he genuinely wants to learn.
I do too. And he asked a good question that I think applies to the Dylan conversation here.
Okay.
Says, how do you walk the line between the sky is falling versus constant drinking of Kool-Aid?
Is this morning?
Yes. This
Okay.
is this is when I'll talk about hedging feelings.
Okay.
Hedging my feelings versus not being able to criticize anything they did wrong or we disagree with. And I think this is a great example of that. You can say, hey, Dylan's been really good. And there's some stuff he needs to do a little better.
And versus but.
Yes.
You know who taught me that?
Who?
DJ.
Yeah.
He said, do you know the power? Like, this was probably a handful of
conjunctions are very powerful.
He goes, do you know the power in and
versus but?
No, so that's how he landed it. That's how he landed the plane. But he goes, validating what someone says when you can use when you understand the difference between and but. Hey, I understand what you said to me. I understand I understand what you said to me, and it makes me feel. Versus, I understand what you said to me, but it makes me feel, right? Because it changes the whole.
Because one is, I validate what you're saying to me is legitimate, or what you did.
Or I understand that you said it,
or that you think it's legitimate, or whatever,
Yeah.
right? But is, hey, I get you said all that. I'm gonna ignore it and do my own thing over here.
Because Coach White's talking yesterday, and he said and he ate it. But the questions that I was getting last night, especially in Lincoln, was, are you feeling like he's blaming the players? And I looked over my shoulder. I'm like, is that Casey's? Obviously, I feel like Foreman. Brother came to get his bread. Just putting ice in my Yeti. And I go, that was literally his opening statement. Like he said, basically, that's on me.
Yeah, how many times did I need to do better?
Right?
It was at least 3.
But you know what you hear from the players?
Hey, we need to do better.
We need to do better.
We need to execute.
So at least, so you have a chance. I'm telling you, folks, and I'm not a sky is falling guy. I'm the one that said Monday, hey, listen, we're going to be okay. Did you listen to Bang Bites yesterday? If you didn't listen to Bang Bites, listen to Bang Bites. I didn't get doom and gloom from Coach Rule's presser. Hey, listen, this is what we got to do. This is what happened. This is what we have to move on. My takeaway wasn't,
no.
Oh, man. Because I think we have to let him be honest.
Yes.
I do.
Because it's better than the alternative.
Oh, yeah. And
we've lived with the alternative.
And so this is a 5%er in me.
Okay.
Since he's very cognizant of what goes on and what's being said and how it makes his team feel, I could see him. There's this little part of me that could see him just going super coach speak.
Yeah, locking it down a little bit.
Yeah.
I could see it.
Because he's been telling us for 3 weeks we can't handle what he's saying.
I could see it, and I wouldn't blame him, but there's a part of me that feels like he can't help but coach us too.
Yeah. And there's this other thing about him too, that he knows he's flawed, and he still
he's okay with,
he tries to function at a high level.
He's okay with you knowing he's flawed.
Yeah. And
but he's not, but he's still
and I
work
think
at
that
it.
and I think that's how he wants us to be. I'm dead serious.
That's why I say I think he wants to coach us too. I think he's trying to coach us to do better with more information.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to coach us to be better in the media and better fans. Let's get to Fred. Wants to talk about
DBs.
What's up, Fred?
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Fred.
Hey, I got a question for you. On a 3-3-5, you got 5 defensive backs.
Yes.
I hardly ever see any press coverage.
Yeah.
Is that because of personnel, what suits the personnel on defense? And number 2, on a 3-3-5, you're basically giving up a lineman for a defensive back. What is the weak point on a 3-3-5 versus a 4-3?
It's a very good question. Fred, do you want to stay on the line or you want to hang up and I answer?
I'll hang up.
Okay, buddy. I appreciate it. That's a fantastic question. So Shane, thank you.
I'm on it for you.
3-3-5. So Nebraska uses one of their linebackers sometimes as a fourth lineman. So a lot of times, see, this is a very good question.
So I see like Prince Will, like it's like, is he an edge? Is he a linebacker?
Sometimes because I coach it with Queen, so this is something we have to talk about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What you're giving up is a potential hard edge.
Mm.
So when I say a hard edge,
So like setting the edge on the perimeter.
yes.
Because if you've got a down lineman, it's easier for him to set a hard edge than
it is a guy in a 2-point.
4 yards,
that's
4
a
or
little
5 yards off
that's
the
a
line
little
scrimmage,
lighter
and further off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah,
and may or may not be his assignment at any given time.
So we had a conversation yesterday. This isn't a West Side thing. This is a football question thing because it matters to Fred. So I just pulled into Lincoln and he called and he said, "Hey, let me run something by you." And I was like, "What's up?" And he said, "Hey, Central plays 2 tight ends. Sometimes they get in this formation we call ace." And he says, "When they're in this formation, what do you think about your outsides playing it like this, so it looks like this?" And I thought about it for a second. I'm like, "Oh," I said, I don't have any problems with that. Like, it's just one thing over, right? It's just one number over." I said, "We can play it like this. It fits our normal rules, and it gives us a firm edge if we can't handle Ackerman and Wayne. I mean, 2 big tight ends, right?" And to Fred's point, and because I hear this in Nebraska's fan base a lot, right? Oh, the edge is too soft. The edge is too soft. They're getting vertical, getting too vertical in the passing game or in pass rushing, open up edge lanes. Edge run game, we've been a little soft. So what you have to have in a 3-3-5 versus a 4-3 is your free runner hitter, the 5th guy, whether you count him as like the joker or the adjuster, or the linebacker / secondary guy, he has to be able to play in the run game. He can't just be a pass guy. Like, he has to be kind of firm. That's why the difference between a Jack and their other outside linebacker is typically body type. MJ Sherman's a little bigger, a little more stout.
Looks more like a D lineman.
You'd like to always see him probably play to the strength, but you can protect the weak side too with an extra defender. So the pros to the 3-3-5 is you have a little more versatility. But the way that the body types can be telling. So that's where you're vulnerable. What you get with a 4-3 is you obviously get an extra big body, but you lose a little flexibility on the back end situationally.
But the guys look the same, so that you're not giving anything away.
You're what I would call a little more even-handed.
Like, your outside linebackers are going to basically look the same.
Yeah, you're a little more even-handed in terms of counting bodies in the box.
Your DMs are basically going to look the same.
Yeah.
So you're not telling on yourself with what you're running.
But you're a lot more predictable.
You're more locked in,
right?
To what you have to do.
So that's the give and take. And then the bump and run thing, we go through this all the time. A lot of times it depends on the coverage, right? How close do I want a guy to have to get off, and what kind of help is behind me? So sometimes you can play off man. Sometimes if you think a guy can't go by you, you may press him. If you're bringing pressure, you may press. It just depends on what the coverage is, whether you press or you bail.
Coming up next with Dr. Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We're joined now by Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, what's going on, man?
Oh, not a lot. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're good. We're good. Very, very good, man. Do I talk about baseball or do I not?
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's talk about it. What do we got to talk about?
So the whole Tigers thing, is that fool's gold for you, or did you see that coming?
Hey, if you go back to,
I know you did like them. You told me that.
Yeah, on this very show, I said they were my pick to win the division. Now that's wrong, obviously, but I did say that in early April. So I think they're the team I kind of expected they were going to be early on. They deserve to be in. My guys do not. My guys deserve to nurse their injuries and get started early next week. That's the way it's been. I mean, I'd be happy as a clam if we figured it out for 5 days, but I don't suspect that's going to happen.
So do you like the, are you a big no 163 guy versus getting another team in, or do you like how baseball figures out their postseason? Because this may be one of those bizarro years where you'd like to have an extra game.
Yeah, I kind of like how it is now. I'm probably in the minority with that. I feel like, okay, you give each squad a chance to settle it by their season series. I'm probably saying that, though, Damon, because the Twins, though it's not going to probably matter, hold tiebreakers over the Tigers, Royals, and Seattle. So to me, the setup at this very moment seems like it's the way it should be. But luckily for those teams, the Minnesota Twins are intent on not making the tiebreaker matter at all. So that should work out for them. But I would bet most people like a game 163. And I probably should too, because it's an extra game of baseball on Monday that would be enjoyable to have in the background.
If you're Milwaukee, how much extra money would you pay Pat Murphy right now?
Oh yeah, he's done a heck of a job.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious? How much? Like that? His agent should go to the table right now and be like, seriously.
As much angst as I have, or I guess we'd say disdain for like Vikings Packers and the Minnesota Wisconsin relationship there, I have to say I've never been really down on the Brewers, and I think it's because of Euchre. That he's in that booth. And it totally sways me. I like Bob Euchre so much. When he used to get his 3 innings still, I would mow the lawn listening to Bob Euchre. So I have a soft spot for the Brewers. So I do enjoy when they're doing well, when their sausages aren't trying to run over Byron Buxton.
All right.
To be fair, if they didn't, Byron Buxton would have hurt himself another way.
Yeah,
So.
that was Byron's fault.
I mean, he'd have found a way to get injured one way or another.
Exactly. Oh man. Okay, BC. So you're saying it up close and personal. At what point, do you think to yourself, and I may ask Mitch the same thing later on, do you want answers or whatever, right? You want to figure out Friday versus, all right, these guys got to get on to Purdue when you're at these press conferences?
Yeah, that's a good question, Damon. It's always kind of a fine line there. I usually like to move it forward unless there's just a major topic where someone who is directly involved, and occasionally that comes to a coordinator where you just want to hear what they had to say about it or what happened there. And I think sometimes that is useful for the fans. Okay, this is what happened on this particular play. This is why we did this. A good example is Mitch asked Sat about the 3rd and 3 call, which I loved. And
the call or the question?
I like both.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But I love the call, is what I was saying. And I mean, it was there. And there's some people I would see afterwards that were down on it because it didn't work. I felt like, and I just like hearing Sat describe when he got into the details of how that was on the sheet and how that got on the sheet and how they were in a run personnel grouping and they had never thrown a pass out of that. And so you're getting in Satterfield's mind a little bit as he's answering that of he's probably sitting up there we got him on this. It's there. It's going to be there. And it was. And so I think sometimes things like that, without just dwelling on it for 5 minutes, are useful to show some people how much goes into the planning and why certain stuff happens the way it does. I always go into stuff because I'm very much this way as a layperson that needs to be heavily educated on things. And so all that stuff is always useful to me.
So BC, how much? Okay. That's good. Cause I was talking about this morning about, gosh, sometimes even though these guys are my friend, you guys are my friends, sometimes I just want to say, okay, Your Honor, permission to treat them like a hostile witness. Cause sometimes I wonder, along the lines of the question, I don't know if I'm protective or I'm more solutions than what's the word? Like regurgitating the obvious. Yeah. How much of it, like the line of questions for you or how you receive them when other people ask them, have to do with your personality more than the job you're trying to do?
I don't know exactly where to go with that.
You're inquisitive. You like to learn by nature, right? So that's kind of the direction you tend to move, right?
I like to hear, okay, like an example is Marquise Buford right after the game said a quote, and it wasn't a big quote or anything, but I just remembered it, where he said, we all got to do our 111, like do your job, basically, the old Belichickian phrase. And so there was some of this talk about how maybe Nebraska did some uncharacteristic things, especially late in that game. And so in my brain, I'm interested from Tony White in hearing if he has seen a theme. If there's a theme and it's what happened Friday, so you are looking a little back, but it's also might this carry forward and be an issue at all, where it's in my mind is guys actually want it so much and they're trying to do this extra little thing, that are they getting outside of their job space? Is that what Buford was getting at or not? And maybe he wasn't. Maybe it's just a quote a guy said at the line. Sometimes we just have things come out of our mouth which don't actually mean a whole lot. It's just something that gets said, and people will really, latch on to every word. So you're kind of figuring that out. And so I asked Tony something about that, and Tony kind of said, no, he didn't. I believe his answer was like, it wasn't really that. It wasn't like guys just, got outside of their job necessarily. And so I think that's useful to me to like take this thing over here and put it with someone else. And then you kind of put the whole puzzle together for people who are who maybe don't know as much. And sometimes I want to repeat this. Sometimes I think people just say things up front where it's a quote that does not have to be overly analyzed. And sometimes it happens around here, and that's probably not necessary.
BC, one of the people that gave some quotes yesterday, MJ Sherman, that I think are probably going to get a little bit of run. He was obviously the getting punched in the face thing, but he said something I thought was a little bit more interesting. He says, when you win 3 in a row, and even though you're not doing it fully, there's a tendency to kind of stray away from the process a little bit. And he's kind of talking about how, they stopped doing the tiny little things that got them to this point. When you hear the coaches talk about learning how to win, how much of it do you think is like in the moment, hey, we're in overtime, we got to learn how to win this game like we saw in Illinois, versus, hey, we've won 3 in a row, how do we continue to stack good habits when we've dealt with a little bit of success?
Yeah, I think it's as much the latter. And I think that's what MJ was getting at there. It's that, everybody's kind of patting you on the back. Are you just staying consistently? You're staying with the process, but are you hitting it full bore like you're capable of, like you were like during the Colorado week? And I kind of connect that when I do the connecting the dots to like something like Rule said about, how when Nebraska played Colorado, they were ready for Colorado. They're coming for Colorado. And then he said Illinois was coming for Nebraska. I thought MJ's comments were really good, though, in the sense that he had the part where he talked about it doesn't have to be some motivational speaker who comes in or wholesale changes or any of this stuff. It's that process, and it's hammering it the way we know we can hammer it. And maybe it wasn't quite to that level a week ago. You just keep working to hit it harder, but it doesn't have to be this thing that sometimes we get off on these side topics. Oh, maybe they should do this or change that. I think that's a sign of good culture if a lot of guys are thinking like MJ Sherman, and they're like, no, I trust this process. Things didn't quite go how we wanted it to. It's one game. We just got to double down on it now, and we're going to believe in where that takes us and not lose our heads right now.
What's interesting just listening to that is I go back to what Coach Rule said on Monday about it being a process and being repetitive. And this is on the heels of Monday. I said, I want people to be encouraged, because this is one of those things where these guys are going to watch tape and they're going to look at this thing and they're going to be like, man, you know what? I need to be accountable. this happened, this happened, this happened. I need to be better. I'm listening to you talk now, and how Coach Rule said, you know what, this is kind of part of the process. I wonder how much of this, BC, is Nebraska's players need a frame of reference for when you feel like you're doing something right. Right? You ever done something and you're like, oh, I look back at this week of practice. I did this, 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 and this. It feels like what I did last week when I did this, 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 and this. But then you see it show up to the negative and you're like, oh, yeah, maybe that wasn't as good as I thought it was. Or, well, I know I put in 2 hours on the iPad. How efficient was it? Should I have known when they get in this formation? You know what I mean? So sometimes it real time, you feel like you're doing it right, and you need it to not go right to revisit. Well, maybe I need to be more cognizant real time. Because a lot of times I think we do things that we feel is right, but it's either not enough, or you're practicing the wrong, it's the wrong muscle memory. Because you can practice doesn't make perfect, right? Because you can practice things incorrectly.
Yeah, I get it completely. I couldn't say that any better. Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly true. Like sometimes you have to have that negative where you see, okay, there was maybe a slightly different level to it over here than over there, and not easy to see in the moment when you're going through it. But sometimes, you look back and you do spot some of those things where maybe there's a slight difference, and then you just get back to work. So I thought MJ was really good. I mean, he was intense. He always is. But I asked a pretty standard first question about, like, how's the guy's response been? And he was like, he really gave an answer, and he's looking at me, and I Brunson and I joked. I was like, did you see me backing up in my chair a little bit there? Because MJ he's giving me a look, man. But yeah, I loved what he said, and if guys in that locker room are like that and they go after it with that sort of way, I think that says a lot of the culture, and I think it'll speak a lot on Saturday too. I think they'll play well if they bring that to the table this week.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. I know that, in the last couple weeks, whether it was Colorado or Northern Iowa, people have thought, hey, there's a lot of teachable moments here. There's some things they can do better. But does it, in your opinion, does it sometimes take an actual loss to sort of jolt the system into helping you realize, oh, kind of what DB was talking about, oh, I wasn't actually working hard enough or focusing on the right things? Like, sometimes I know we always want the teachable moments without having to take the loss, but do you think that's always possible?
Yeah, I think it sometimes.
Well, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah, I think sometimes it is useful when something hurts you so bad and you feel it. Like, you know what I mean? Like after the game, Jamal Banks, a veteran, he's lost some games in his career, but you could tell at the podium on Friday night that he had this line about, like, it's something you think is yours and you can't get it back. And it felt dramatic, but he was in pain about the loss. And this is a guy who just joined the program, like, in December or January. And I don't want to get into old stuff too much, but I've seen Nebraska post games in my time covering this team where you did not sense that sort of hurt, when it was over. There was maybe like, oh, well, that's what happened. That was kind of an expectation that could happen. That was not the way it was Friday night. And I know I'm not answering your question directly, Ravi, but to me, that was a good thing in a way to see that. Like, it heartened me. It made me feel like when I was in college and watching a Nebraska team respond after they lost a game, just like how much it dinged them. And so I do think there is some use sometimes of, like, I don't know if this phrase is a good one or not, but it's like where you hate losing almost more than you love winning. I don't know if I like that, but sometimes when you feel it, I'm going to do everything I can to not be back here again in this spot, or not feel it a lot at least.
BC, what did you make of Coach Rule on Monday when he talked about, he basically said, hey, you have to have some intimate conversations with guys. You have to have some talks with your coaches, figure out, are we doing the right things with the guys that we have versus, maybe having an option to play some different guys? What did you think the bulk of or that was about? Do you think it was more attitudinal for guys and how they handle the moment, or the more physical in terms of guys, how they handle the moment? Or do you think one is in direct correlation with the other?
I thought
like when he said that, what did you think when he said that?
I thought he was talking more about psychology of his team on Monday in a lot of the answers, but I'm trying to be careful with that, like not pretending like I know everything, or because I do think sometimes he's talking to his team, sometimes he's talking to us and fans probably.
Yeah.
And so you got to be a little cautious, but I felt like there was definitely some psychology talk within that about, just building that sort of team where there's 4 minutes left in this game. It's tied. Man, this is a great spot to be in, isn't it? Like, that sort of feeling like I'm out here on a nationally televised game and let's go make a play and have a party, that sort of thing, like getting that sort of mindset within your team. And I don't know how you cross that bridge. I think it's something obviously they're still working on with this group. It just doesn't happen overnight. And another thing I'd add is, before the season, we'll do these polls and we'll say like, okay, how many games are they going to win? And like a common number on it, when the ones I did was like 7 or 8. They're going to go win 7 or 8 out of the 12. And that's always easy to say, like in June or July, and you kind of can be like, yeah, 7 or 8, and that'll be good. I'll be happy with that. But then when those losses come, it gets a little tough around here, like with how fans feel in the moment, and that's fans being fans in the way it should be with those emotions. But you have to be able to then deal with that in a place where people care so much about Husker football, and it means so much to them. And I think it means that much to the players too, because they sense that. And so I do think all that weight does sometimes sit on this team a little bit, but it's just something you've got to work with and figure it out. And I thought that's what he was talking about with the psychology thing on some of those answers, but maybe there was a mixture of all of it.
BC, do you think this Purdue game is kind of coming at a perfect time for Nebraska, where, you don't want to focus too much on things being opponent specific, but if Nebraska goes out and executes the way they should or the way they expect to, they'll beat Purdue, because Purdue's not great, but it's also an opportunity to challenge themselves in a road game for the first time this season. Like, it kind of seems like, coming off the Illinois loss, Purdue is sort of the perfect opponent this week.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I don't know. I like that the part I like is that it's on the road. Not I just like
me too, actually. I agree.
Yeah. I don't know that I get into the part that it should be a win or any. I don't think they can look at it like that in any way. But I like the fact that they get to go out with their brothers, get in the team hotel the night before, and it's just, I think there is something to be said for that, where you separate yourself a little, you get outside the bubble for a weekend, and you see how that goes, and if you can show that chemistry then on the field the next day. And so I think that part could be useful if they use it right. And I just think the rest of it has to come down to, they talk about it's about us all the time, and that's what it's got to be. Like, you can't get caught up in like what Purdue has or hasn't done, or what supposed strengths or weaknesses they have. Like Satterfield the other day, Purdue's rushing defensive stats are horrible, but he was making the point that he thought, like, it's, when you watch them on film, it's not like they just get out schemed or run over. They've let some guys make great individual plays, or guys have made great individual plays against them. So he expects they're going to be tougher than their numbers show. And I think that's got to be sort of the mindset of the whole team from what you expect out of your competition. You got to just believe we're going to get their very best. They're a wounded animal that feels like, everybody's kind of given up on their season probably and around their campus. this is their chance to go say, hey, there's still a lot of football left. You got to realize you're going to get that from them.
Yeah,
but
and,
I do
and
like
a lot of what they
their
did was
run.
quarterback run game too. I mean, we don't have a Riley Leonard that's going to rush for over,
Yes.
that's going to rush for a buck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is a different sort of matchup. So I'm sure Purdue's looking at it as a chance, like, let's fix us here. This is a chance to really, get back on track. And Nebraska has the right to do the same thing. I do like, though, that they're going on the road this week, and just like how they can try to mesh together in that way. I think that can be really good at certain points in the season.
BC, we appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, B.
Good stuff there with our guy, Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
It's it's interesting with I do think getting away from Lincoln is good for him this week.
I'm pretty excited about that for them too.
Yeah. They've been at home for a while.
And the support staff. I mean, Nebraska's staff has got to be like the folks at the stadium, like having all those night games. It's cool for the fans.
That's a lot, though.
They need a break.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I think you get your little behinds up out of town. Go to West Lafayette for a while.
Man, I think it's a long time to just be sitting in Lincoln. Like, it's just a long time.
Dylan said something interesting, right? Sitting on that thing for 2 days
before you got back in it.
Yeah, it's not. I'm just like, it's not good. It's not good.
Make sure you get out to teamjackfoundation.org. Their 12th annual Radiothon presented by the home agency is this Thursday. You can listen at teamjackfoundation.org. You can donate. You can find other ways to get involved. So far, they've raised over $13 million for pediatric brain cancer research. Get to teamjackfoundation.org to get involved. Half of this show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We're joined now by Andy Kendeigh from KETV. AK, what's going on?
What's happening? Happy Hump Day, boys.
Not too much.
How are things, AK? How we doing?
We're doing all right. We're gearing up for first rodeo of the year. Every time we can go to West Lafayette, it is a good week.
Hey, so when are you leaving?
We leave Friday morning, and we do something a little different. We fly to Chicago and drive down.
Yeah, that's your thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it saves us a couple hours and allows us to come back to Chicago on Saturday night after the game. So
and then you're just going to drive and the rest away that night?
No, we'll fly back on Sunday morning early. So.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because you're going to leave the car. My bad. I was like, well, what are you going to do with the vehicle?
Yeah, it saves a couple hours, and as you guys know, time is especially when it's 11 a.m. kick. We couldn't even get a hotel in West Lafayette. They were ridiculously priced. So we were staying in Indianapolis, and
so I think that's where that's where Sip and those guys are staying too.
Yeah, it's just a struggle sometimes with especially the smaller college towns. You got to kind of be creative in your lodging for the weekend. But, the choice was stay at a decent hotel in Indianapolis or stay at the Roach Motel in West Lafayette. So we went to a decent hotel.
I think that's a good call, AK. I think that's a good call. That might be a hot take, but.
Yeah.
Hot take, Kendeigh. That's what everybody says.
That's right. That's right.
I have a policy against staying in hotels where the doors open to the outside.
That's exactly what they were.
See,
That's
I'm out.
Exactly what
I'm out.
They were. On the pictures, I was like, "Oh, that opens up to the van."
I've never heard that, but I think that's funny.
100%.
Yeah.
I won't do it. I will not do it.
Well, considering I'm not an adult, I don't book a lot of my own hotel stuff, so
I've kind of at other people's mercy.
Well, I'm either on the Bonvoy thing, or I'm staying where like the rest of the sports teams are staying, whether it's youth basketball or so I don't really ever
Yeah, Marriott Bonvoy doesn't have a lot of hotels that the doors that open up to the outside.
No, not at all. I will tell you, boys, two things on hotels. So, number one, DB, I'm with you. I'm a Bonvoy guy through and through, Marriott guy from start to finish. And there wasn't any options in West Lafayette, so we're staying at one in Indy. Two, the Husker team hotel, we used to get their arrival. That has changed over the years. But under the bow, and I think maybe the first year under Coach Riley, They stayed in a hotel, and I kid you not, with a water park, like a little kiddie water park with like water slides and the whole bit. And it was laughable. I was like, seriously, this is where they stay? But they've changed their hotel in West Lafayette now. But that they did stay in a hotel with a little kiddie water park in the hotel.
I do know we happen to have a head coach who is very serious about how to travel and what the protocol looks like. So he's buttoned it up even more from last year. And I need to the staff that's like me, we need to be in our seats through security in the plane by noon. And they aren't leaving till 11:55 from the stadium. So we need to have our little behinds out of the way. That's basically what he's saying. Like, you guys get there and do what you need to do. When we get there, we're leaving.
If you ain't there, you're not coming. So
Yeah.
that's good.
I didn't take it personal. There's enough other people on that email chain that they're in the same boat I am. We're what we call non-essential.
That's right.
Yeah.
We call you the bus 5 people.
Yeah. Yep. We are. There's like 30 of us. We're plus 5 together. We know our role.
Andy, I wanted to get to volleyball here because obviously it was a super big weekend in the state between Nebraska with their 2 top 5 wins, Creighton with their 2 top 10 wins. Now both teams rated in the top 6. I mean, it's a great time to be a volleyball fan in Nebraska.
No question, and I think nationally people are starting to wake up on how good of a sport it is to watch. You know, I just think of some of the stuff. You know, when you see statistics on how many people watched and this is the greatest regular season or viewership for television because the Nebraska Louisville game was on ABC on KETV over the weekend. I just think it speaks volumes to where the potential is with the sport of volleyball. And if you get that type of viewership, like it was over about 650,000 viewers with the maxing out just under 1 million, and that's on a NFL football Sunday. Just imagine what this sport can do on its own, you know, when it's a standalone product. So I just think that people are kind of opening their eyes to what a great sport it is, what a viewership sport it is. And I give Creighton props for their run and for their scheduling too. I mean, Coach Booth, for God bless her, you know, when I saw the schedule, I was like, oh boy, you know, that's pretty ambitious. But yet, after losing at Louisville, to come back and to go to Kansas and then win against Purdue, and then to win against, and not just win against Kansas, but to sweep Kansas on the heels of going into your Big East Conference play, that was mission accomplished, I think, for their non-con. I mean, that's scheduling tough, and Creighton did what they needed to do to put themselves in position for a great run in conference and then a deeper run in the postseason. And Nebraska, I think we know what Nebraska can do. That hiccup against SMU, I know a lot of Husker football fans are hoping the hiccup against Illinois can treat the football team much like the hiccup against SMU did for the volleyball team, but we'll see if that's going to happen. But man, Nebraska has been playing some terrific volleyball, and we'll see if that continues as we move forward.
Andy, I wanted to stick on Creighton there for a second. Obviously, they got to number 6 in the country, their highest ranking ever as a volleyball program. And I asked our friend Jacob Padilla this, but it's still kind of, shocks is probably too strong of a word, but like Creighton isn't this kind of plucky, you know, underdog program anymore. Like they're doing this against the best teams in the country. They take Nebraska to 5 sets. Obviously the wins this weekend. Like, is there a part of you that is still just kind of marveling at this slow burn that Coach Booth has been able to build over, I mean, we're talking about almost 20 years now at this point of the program, and then continually, like, just gradually leveling them up to the point where they're a top 10 team in the country?
Well, I think it's a credit to Coach Booth and her staff. Obviously, she surrounded herself with great people and great players. And I think when you talk to any volleyball person who knows anything about the sport, everybody points to Kendra Waite. I mean, she is unbelievable at what she does, and she's so dynamic, and she's such a great setter in her position and does so many things. But when, you know, you've got Nora Sis, who I don't think gets as much love as she really deserves, because she's kind of an understated personality, you know. but she is as good of a player and would be a superstar no matter where you put her, on any team. And they've got some players, but props to Coach Booth in terms of how she's scheduled, how she structured the program, and that people want to play for her, and that's been quite apparent with the people they brought in out of the portal. That this is a destination if you want to play volleyball in family atmosphere and play some high level volleyball. And now, I think the next step for this program is to make it to a Final Four. And I think this could be the year because they are stacked, and it's just, so much can happen and what have you. And I don't want to get ahead of myself before we get into the Big East conference season, but this team is built for a deep run in the tournament, and it's going to be fun to watch to see what Creighton does in the volleyball tournament come December.
AK, how important do you think it is, or timely, or beneficial, or whatever your opinion is, that Nebraska is out of town this week?
Oh, I think it's huge. I think it's very beneficial, DB. You know how it goes. It is one of these things which, and I think you pointed out to it when we were joking about the hotel. Coach Rule, as much he does, don't get me wrong, by saying this doesn't mean he doesn't like home games. He obviously loves home games. He loves the home field advantage, but Coach Rule loves being on the road where it's just his guys, right? It's just them against the world. They can build this us against the world type of mentality where it's just the guys. It's just football. They're on the road. They're in a hotel where they can go over meetings and whatever. It's more of everybody's in one unit type of mentality, right? And I think this weekend, above all weekends, after what happened last Friday and what have been said in the post game, because they did some good things. Obviously, there's some blemishes, but I think by going on the road, they could really lock down and lock in and focus. And there's something about going on the road that can elevate a team's mentality, and I think this is a perfect spot for it against a team who's backpedaling. Let's be honest, they've had a couple rough weeks, so this is there for the taking. And I'd be disappointed if the Huskers didn't take it this weekend.
That's our guy, Andy Kendeigh, KETV. AK, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, fellas. DB, we'll see you in West Lafayette.
See you, buddy.
Big Brothers, Big Sisters empowers young people through one-to-one mentoring relationships that unlock their full potential. You can make a difference, too, by becoming a Big Brother, Big Sister, or a Big Couple. Visit mentoromaha.org today to sign up. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. And 1 week from today, you can get back out to Werner Park for a little afternoon soccer. That's October 2nd, 12 p.m. It's Students and Educators Day presented by Family Fare and Supermercado. Make sure you get to unionomaha.com to get your tickets. Maybe take a little half day. Go hang out at the ballpark, watch a little bit of soccer.
Yeah. Warner was lit up last night. I had to drive past there.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Busy doing things at
know.
Warner, playing kind of, but not really meaningful games.
Well, as meaningful as,
a team that's clinched can be playing.
Yeah. Well, that was the first game of the International League series. So trying to get 2 out of 3 there, trying to win another national title.
Well, what you want to do is you want to be trending in the right direction.
I like trending.
Yeah.
Like on Twitter? You want to be trending?
It depends on what it's for.
Yeah, sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Yeah, I don't want to be Shannon Sharp trending.
Certainly don't want to be P. Diddy trending.
Do you want to be Sluka trending?
Listen, I get it. I get it.
You get why he's sitting?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to set this because I don't want to.
Yeah, we don't have to assume. So
I just dropped that in, and you're like, yeah, I get it. That's not what I thought you were going to say.
That's the take. All right, So
shoot,
we thought the Mountain West and was having some chaos before with their
because you saw UNLV trending, and you're like, what?
With their wrestling with the Pac-12 and all that, and UNLV was in, and now they're reconsidering, and so I thought it was having to do with that again. And I guess, Pac-12 and Mountain West are just going to sue each other into a stalemate at this point. But Matthew Sluka, the transfer starting quarterback for UNLV, announced either late last night or early this morning that he would be sitting the rest of the season, redshirting, and then transferring as representations that were made to him were not kept.
Yeah.
Basically, he agreed to an NIL deal to go to UNLV. and my man's not getting paid.
Yep. And his comment was, I committed to UNLV based on certain representations that were made to me, which were not upheld after I enrolled. Sluka posted on X. Despite discussions, it became clear that these commitments would not be fulfilled in the future. I wish my teammates the best of luck this season and hope for continued success of the program. Now, this is interesting on a multitude of levels because remember, I said this was the year for Odom. Because he would be one of those guys like Drink that could potentially be on the short list of these jobs that were going to come open at the end of the season.
And let's not forget, one of these group of 5 teams is going to make the playoff.
Oh, yeah.
And UNLV's in that discussion.
It's a good football team.
They are undefeated. They're in the top 25.
Yeah.
A large part of that is because of Matthew Sluka.
Crazy.
And now they have to figure out their quarterback spot that has been they've been very quarterback heavy, especially quarterback run game heavy.
What do you think makes this difference than like when a receiver from Florida or Florida State leaves saying that the NIL was botched?
I think it's the exact same thing.
Because this one seems to be garnering more attention.
Because it's in season. That's why.
Okay.
It's different.
Why didn't I think of that?
I don't know. But it's different when we hear, because we can put this out there. I don't know that it's been reported, but there were rumors about what happened with Dylan in Georgia. Now, part of it was his affinity for Nebraska, but there were rumors that they promised things that they weren't going to keep.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Which I don't think was, yeah.
I don't think that's the main cause, but
I don't think it was but I do know that was alluded to.
Fact. It was a rumor that we think factored in.
Yeah.
Right? So, and we don't have a problem with that because it was before he was enrolled. It was before he played any games. The reason this is new is because that he's been playing well, and they're good. That's why, like, Jaden Rashida from Florida hadn't played a ball game yet. Don't even know if he's good. Maybe he is, maybe he's not, like at Florida at the time, right? Ends up going somewhere else. Now he's suing Florida, but that's not mid-season. That's why this is different. But here's the thing. If I start working for a company, and they sign me to a contract, they're gonna do this salary, right? And they're like, hey, first paycheck comes a month after you start working. Okay, not a big deal. That's pretty common. There's a lot of times there's a delay in payroll, right? No big deal. If I get to that month and I'm like, hey, yeah, that paycheck's coming, right? And they're like, oh, actually, about that, we're not going to be able to pay you what we said we're going to pay you. Guess how much longer I'm going to work there?
Probably not much longer.
Probably not a whole lot longer.
Yeah.
Right? I know we don't like to look at college football like a job.
I wonder if he was getting paid per wins, because what took so long?
I mean, he said he was trying to work it out with him. If you believe him,
I'm willing to be patient.
Well, no, if he's like,
hey, here, I get it. You're gonna get it. You'll
get it to me, yeah. Or if he's like, if they're like, hey, yeah, we just got to get this, whatever. Sounds like his representation was talking to whoever was supposed to be making that money, trying to get it worked out. Maybe he's like, hey, it doesn't have to be in a lump sum. We can do a payment plan, whatever. I don't know, but
because this isn't new. Because like full disclosure, I mean, the rule before Rule got there, the year before Rule got there, there was plenty of scuttlebutt about Casey Thompson and what was going on with
his situation, with
Coach Frost in that situation. So, like, I mean, I'm not.
This isn't new. In season is new. In season is new, and to just say it, right? Because we've seen some guys. I mean, Notre Dame just had a linebacker a couple days ago that was like, "Hey, I'm going to redshirt and transfer after the season," right? But to come out and say, "Yeah, I was promised I was going to get paid. I'm not getting paid. I'm out," right? That's like being honest about it and being clear on what it is. And I think, frankly, the timing also has to do with the fact that he knows, like, hey, I've got until this date to figure it out. And then I have to stop playing. Otherwise, I lose my eligibility.
It's just interesting how this is not how I thought it would play out.
With the NIL stuff?
Like, full disclosure. But I did say the unintended consequence of name, image, and likeness will be that coaches now have to be who they say they are.
We said this with Rule a lot.
This is in my former life. And I was trying to get some people to understand that, like, hey, you want checks and balances. That was my whole thing. I remember this segment clearly. I'm like, you want it to be where not one person yields all the power. You want competitive balance. And I was looking at competitive balance between employee and employer.
Sure.
Like I want there to be some tug of war. So when I'm recruiting you, I have to be who I say I'm going to be or who I say I am. Otherwise, man, it's not going to work. Like you can't just say what you want to say to get somebody in the door and then not be that dude.
So here's the only.
So I don't mind that, to be honest.
Here's the only addendum I would add on to what you said there.
I don't need addendums unless it's A, B, and C for compensatory things that I do.
Is
this an addendum?
I'm not paying you, but yeah. Here's an addendum to what you said, though. It's not just the head coach has to be who he says it is. Now, everybody involved with your program has to be who they say they are. Because I don't think, I'm guessing, but I'm making an assumption here. I don't think Barry Odom isn't holding up his end of the deal.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's somebody else involved with the program not holding up their end of the deal, right? Whether it's a collective, whether it's a booster, whether it's a business that said they were going to partner with the university, whoever it is. It's not just the coach or the coaching staff anymore, or even the athletic director and the athletic department. It's everybody involved with the program now has to be who they say they are. And that's a big responsibility.
I wonder how, because I think people are going to look at this deal because now there's this new market, right? And we've seen it with Wojnarowski, right? Where, hey, I'm going to go help
be a GM.
I'm going to go be a GM. I'm going to go help the Bonnies out.
Nebraska has one.
Michigan just had a new hire, right? Where this is what people. So there's plenty of opportunities for things like this. The paperwork is going to be interesting, right? Because you alluded to signing a contract, right, at your job.
Yeah, and maybe they didn't. Maybe he didn't sign a contract. Maybe it's a verbal, right?
Yeah, I don't
know. That's the thing.
So what? So you would just quit, right? You'd just be like,
yeah, I would walk. I'm not working for free, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Unless I know I'm working for free getting, like if I'm volunteering for that situation, sure, whatever. That's fine. Because I've worked for free before, don't get me wrong. But I knew what I was getting into. If I'm told I'm getting paid and then I don't, deuces. I'm out.
I wonder how this escalates because if nothing else, and maybe it's much ado about nothing, but at least it's a warning shot fired for
collectives, for universities, for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Now I think I'm hoping that as some of this gets brought in-house next year, that should clear up some of the middlemen to misrepresent things, right? You would hope.
Yeah.
But those middlemen are still going to exist to provide additional compensation on top of whatever the revenue sharing model is. It's not like NIL is going away. It's just going to look a little different. So you're still going to have some of this, but it won't be the difference, at least at places like Nebraska. I don't know what UNLV's situation will be, but at places like Nebraska, it won't be like you won't be getting paid at all. It'll be, hey, I'm not getting my extra. I'm not getting my endorsement money. It's not like the team's not paying you.
And how critical was his redshirt year? Because he played 4 years at Holy Cross.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
This is this is the first one. I certainly don't think it's going to be the last. And I do wonder at some point if we see this come back the other way, where a university ends up at some point having a gripe against their employee
for not holding up their end of it.
Whatever that.
What are they going to say? You told us you were going to be good?
No, I mean, let's say they said they're going to make a certain number of appearances, or
for sure.
I'm not saying about on the field play.
Yeah, because that's not what it's.
No, but these contracts. That's not what it's about. But these contracts involve other deliverables, right? That's what's going to be interesting to me.
Yeah, you pay me enough money, I'll show up anywhere.
But you know what? It won't happen until somebody's bad on the field.
Yeah.
Then they're going to sue for the appearances. Coming up next, we won't sue him for his appearance. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We're live at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. That's DBM Ravi Lulla, and we're joined now by our guy, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, how are you this morning?
What's going on, guys? I'm doing well.
Mitch, how we doing?
You're not holding out because nobody paid your NIL deal or anything, or?
No holdout here. Checks are clearing.
Mitch, I see you are still in full support of your Royals. Do you believe? He
scored a run last night, so I'm very happy about that. It wasn't a real run, but they scored a run.
Still counts the same.
Yeah, definitely not a real run when you start the inning with a runner on second and he scores on an error. But that's their first run in like a week, I think. So I'm going to count it.
Of all my peers that cheer for baseball teams, I don't think any of them are happy this morning, with the exception of May. Did the Guardians win? BC's still pissed about the Twins.
No Padres fans in your collection of fans.
Oh, I see what you did there.
I didn't even think about the fact that it came against the Dodgers. Look, the Dodgers are fine. It doesn't matter.
I went to bed mad over that, Mitch. Like I'm like, of all teams, the only team it could have been worse, Mitch, well, there's two. Either the Cardinals or the Giants. Right? I would have been able to eat it a little better, even if it was the Braves. 4 teams that
beat them in the playoffs. Beat them in the playoffs, Damon, and
I don't want
to be forgotten.
They notoriously choke, but it's not like we don't either. The Dodgers don't either until they get to the World Series. So, I mean,
Padres don't have Shohei.
How about the Diamondbacks just getting the field goal kicked on them to make it 10 last night in such an important game? Was that nuts? Baseball. Mitch, do you want 163 to come back, or do you like the extra team in the playoffs? Game 163.
Yeah. I like his well. This could reach a tipping point and it would go the other
You're gonna
way,
answer again in 8 days.
Yeah, I like as many teams in the playoffs as possible when my team is out there scratching for its life with 5 games to play.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, Mitch.
Whatever suits me best in the moment is what I like. I think that's the way it works for a fan.
I like the honesty there. I like the honesty.
So you know what's funny? That's how. Okay, so Mitch, I was struggling with the press conferences yesterday. I was like, full bore mad. Right? I'm like, stop belaboring that point. Move on to Purdue. Don't ask him that. Ask the coach this, not the player that. Like, I was all that. And at the end of the day, I'm like, you know what? The only time I like to be referred to as part of the media is when it's beneficial for me to be in the media. Because it's just funny you say that, because I had to be honest with myself. I only want the perks of media when it's actually a perk. When it's detrimental it seems detrimental to people's well-being or their mental health or moving on to win another game or human interest, I'm like, then I'm mad again.
It's okay that you've got 1 foot in as long as you admit it.
Thank you. I want to let myself off the hook. I'm like,
hey, look, I mean, I kind of feel the same way. And I don't know if this is like where your frustrations lie, but it's Tuesday and the game was Friday and we've all been over it a lot. And I don't think I'm pretty sure, based on what I see as far as like the what people are consuming, and I have some ability to view that at my job. We can track it. Like, the people don't want to hear anymore about what went wrong on Friday night. But from the media's perspective, like, this is the first chance we've had to talk with Marcus Satterfield and Tony White since the game ended. They don't make the coordinators available for interviews after the game. The game's on Friday. You got Saturday to sulk. You got Sunday to start to get over it. You got Monday to hear from the head coach and move forward and say this can still be a good season. And then Tuesday comes, and here comes Tony and Marcus, and it's the first time to hear from them. And the questions are all going to have to still be, you can't just not ask the questions because there's only 12 games and they all matter so much. And in this state of Nebraska, we are going to overreact. We are going to digest a game 5 times. It's just the way we are. It's the way we're wired. And if it wasn't that way, then you wouldn't have the kind of passion that you see.
Yeah. Again, thank you for letting me off the hook. I was so uncomfortable. I'm like, I can't wait to talk to Mitch tomorrow. I'm going to ask for permission to treat him like a hostile witness. Like, why does he keep asking MJ those questions? Like I was. Was it me? Did I ask MJ the question? I
don't remember what I asked MJ. I might have asked him something.
It seemed like
I asked him about the penalty. I asked him about
like
the penalty.
3 or 4 questions that were kind of the same. And to his credit, I felt like I came out with he really was. That was at the end of the day. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna back away from the ledge. I'm not mad anymore. MJ and Mitch, you know how I can kind of get sometimes. Like, so I'm not joking really, because I do cheer for Like I want people to do well, right? I don't want them to feel uncomfortable or attacked. I don't care who it is, right? So as I'm listening, I'm like, at what point do you guys know? And maybe you kind of just explained it, but at what point, and I say you guys, like, I'm not, this is where I'm not media, Mitch. Do you know to move on and talk West Lafayette? Because Maccabee and those guys are going to present a whole unique challenge. But then I'm like, well, Purdue gives up this many rushing yards. And then I'm like, guys, watch the film. Like these are running quarterbacks. This isn't Nebraska's offense. Like it's not that. So then I'm mad again. Right. So it's like, how do we know when to move on to the next thing?
I think and every week's different. Every game's different. The scenarios are different. This being the first loss of the year and just like the jarring reality of the way that overtime and overtime was jarring and the second half was just very disappointing. Like the progression of the second half and the way that Illinois, and here we are talking about it again. It's Wednesday. The way that Illinois like asserted its physical control, all of that stuff leads, I think, to more conversation about it. Now, if Nebraska was playing Iowa this week or Wisconsin, I think it'd be a little bit different because you're more intrigued with that opponent. And you look at Purdue and you're like, and this is going to be a drab atmosphere on Saturday in West Lafayette. And they're coming off of 2 ugly losses. And yeah, it's a running quarterback. That's why they give up the rushing yards. But I don't know that anybody like in the media or even among the fans is like working themselves into a lather and getting all that excited about what you're going to see from Purdue. People probably recognize that it's more about Nebraska and what happens with Nebraska in this game that's going to determine the outcome of it. So
that's how I felt about Illinois, though.
Yeah. Well, Purdue is even, I think it's even more along those lines because you're going on the road and, we'll hear on Saturday, whether it's in a positive light or not, about how they had to bring their own juice to this game. That's always the case when Nebraska's played at Purdue. And
well, if I was pissed coming off a loss, there'd be plenty of juice. Like
there should be.
Play that thing as early as possible, and let's get it on. Right? Like
there should be, and they were pissed. I mean, you could hear it with Tony White. He doesn't want the freshman quarterback to carry the load, and you could certainly hear it with MJ. Like we'll find out. We'll find out on Saturday how genuine it is and how real it is. I think it's certainly real with those two. And we heard the Nebraska defense mad before the Colorado game. I don't think we heard them necessarily all that mad. And we're not privy to what they're saying in the locker room, but in the interviews don't tell you everything. Probably tell you a lot less than what we in the media like to think that they do. But that's really all we have to go off, and especially in a week like this, where I don't think we're going to get a Chasing 3 episode to go behind the scenes. This is it. These are the interviews. This is the look we get into the program, and from our perspective, after Tuesday, it looks like those guys are mad, like Tony and MJ and some of the others. They're not happy about the way things have gone recently, the last couple of weeks on the defensive side in a variety of areas, and they're planning to do something about it. So we'll see.
Mitch, you brought up how things went in overtime. How do you balance, as somebody who has covered this team for a while, how do you balance the reality of what overtimes have looked like for Nebraska over the last 10 years versus the fact that these players and these coaches and this team has very little to do with any of that?
Well, they've been a part of 2 of them, these coaches and the players who aren't freshmen on this team. So that's 25% of the 8 that have gone in a bad direction. And the one on Friday night was as more ugly than any of those overtimes. So I wouldn't like exclude them from any kind of involvement in this trend. But you're right, Ravi. Like it does predate anyone who's even a part of this program on the coaching staff or player side. I do think like there's a little bit of like hand me down factor going on. Like the seniors on this team who are 5th and 6th year guys, like they played with the players who were around in the late 2010s. Some of them were even themselves around in 2019. And like if you've had this bad experience every time the clock hits 60 and you still have time left to play, like you have some memory of it. You have some, like, it's been handed down through the last few years. I don't know. I wrote about this a little bit on Monday, and how like Nebraska's issues in close games Like overtime is the ultimate, like everything about a close game that can go right or go wrong. It gets all like compressed into one very short period of time. So like all of the tendencies that you might show, good or bad, in close games are magnified in overtime. And that's clearly what we've seen. Like Nebraska's been poor in close games and one-score games. And then in overtime, it's been terrible for the last 10 years.
So, Mitch, let me ask you something. I'm curious how can we or are we willing to separate? It seems like we're willing to separate Dylan Raiola from Coach Thomas and Coach Satterfield, right? Because you just kind of in tongue in cheek, and I get what Coach White was saying when he says we have a freshman playing his ass off, but he's not doing that independent of playing within a certain system either, right? He's not ad-libbing and you have to, you don't get Dylan's life without Coach Sat and Coach Thomas in it. Yet when something happens like the 3rd and 3, we have to have Coach Satterfield explain the methodology behind it, as opposed to just saying, you know what, like when it goes good and there are all these tight window catches and throws, we give Dylan a lot of the credit. When the play doesn't work, it's Sat's fault for what he called.
Mm-hmm.
Does it feel like that to you? Because it feels like that to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of just the nature of it sometimes. Like the players get
that doesn't make it right, though. I'm just trying to get to the methodology.
Well, for the record, I've defended Sat for that play call. You know, I think there's a time and a place to try to use deception to win. And could they have run it on 2nd down? Sure. But I don't have an issue with the play. And I know a lot of people do have an issue with like the personnel that Nebraska used in that play and the fact that all of their best offensive playmakers were on the sideline on 3rd and 3 in a huge play. But I'm okay with it. I think it's just football. That's just, you know, you don't have those guys on the team who were out there running routes on that play unless you trust them to be able to go in a big moment and make a play. Like otherwise, why are they suiting up? But yeah, the methodology of like why the blame, I guess. And like I asked Sat the question yesterday, basically, can you walk us through why you did that? Like why you made that decision to use that personnel? And you know, it was because I wanted, and that I've heard so much about it since Friday night, like either a positive or a negative. Like if that play would have worked, he would be hailed as a genius. Man, you pulled all the best players off the field, the best pass catchers, and then you went out and made the play of the game. That's fantastic. It doesn't work. You know, there's some talk in the opposite direction. Like I just wanted to, since it was the first time we talked to him, to give him a chance to say it. I mean, I kind of knew what his answer would be. Like we were showing a run look and we threw the ball. And if we had been showing a different look, that play probably wouldn't have been open the way that it was. And we hoped that it would be open. It was open, and we trust Dylan to be able to make that throw. Like end of story. But
we watched a really, really good wide receiver score a touchdown from the fullback spot, and we watched a third string tackle catch a touchdown pass. Like, that stuff happens.
That's part of football, right?
That's all the time.
You don't just always line up in your base and have all your players doing exactly what the other team thinks they're going to do and then go win that way in the Big Ten. You don't. You've got to use some deception at times, and that's clearly what Nebraska was doing there on 3rd and 3. It worked for Illinois. It didn't work for Nebraska on that play.
I'm just saying, like, if that passes, like, let's say you win the 50-50 ball in the end zone, or you go up 2 scores, like there was a point. I just like context, because this is full disclosure. This is not me. This is the total coach in me, where it takes 3 phases and everybody's got to be accountable in the whole 1 of 11. But for 2.5 quarters, Mitch, Illinois only scored 3 points, and Nebraska couldn't like pull away. They're for whatever the reason. And I'm not assessing individual fault, but then when we go back and we retell the story, that's not the impression that I get based on what's being said. I don't know if I'm a negative magnet where somebody said, well, DB, people think you have a lot of the answers, which I probably don't. So people ask you the negative stuff. So maybe that's why I feel like it. But the reality of it is there were 2.5 quarters where Illinois wasn't scoring.
Mm-hmm.
But the narrative is the defense was so bad that X, Y, and Z happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think that the narrative is that way because the defense, even when Illinois wasn't scoring, the defense wasn't getting 3 and outs. They did create 2 turnovers, which great step in a direction that they are fully focused on trying to go. But I think part of the issue, from my perspective, part of the issue with the offense and why Nebraska didn't pull away is because they weren't able to get into the kind of offensive flow and rhythm that they need to be, since Illinois, even when it wasn't scoring, was putting together 7, 8, 9 play drives. Now, that's not like an excuse for the offense. Like, the offense should still, the way they were moving it in that time, be able to come up with
if you catch that 50-50 ball, Mitch, or you throw the ball to Lindemeyer, Dylan is 29 of 35 passing.
Yeah, over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns.
So what rhythm do we need?
Well, 5, because you're talking about Nair and Lindemeyer, so you'd be talking about 5
2 touchdowns, and then it's a blowout. Like, and then it's just all, Nebraska's ranked 15th this week.
Sunshine and rainbows.
We're talking about the college. We're talking about the college football playoff.
That's
nobody's even brought up the defense. Yeah,
that's why you hear the angst that you do, because you don't get that life without Sat in it. And it's not just in defensive Sat, but you also aren't throwing dirt on the defense, which was, in my opinion, lack of discipline and some schematics more than the physicality. Because those are the narratives that I hear that I'm like, what are we watching?
I think we're left with a certain taste in our mouth because of overtime. It's that simple. Overtime.
I'll eat that.
The last thing we saw is tinting everything else.
I'll eat that. I wish more. Okay, I'll eat that.
I think there would have been different narratives about that game. I know that I had to basically take everything that was on my computer screen that I was doing. We normally have like these takeaways that we put on The Athletic at the end of the game. I mean, seriously, at the end of the game, like, we try to get something posted for the fans to be able to see right away. Like, and these have to be written in the second half and sometimes even in the first half. And at the end of that game, because of the way overtime went, I just said, delete everything that I had, like everything that I like determined, or everything that went through my head about the way that I should feel about that game, the way that fans, what I would want to get across to them. Like, I had to start over because overtime was that. It just changed the perspective that much. Should it have? I don't know, but I think that's like the emotional response that just about everybody had.
Yeah, and Mitch, I think that's a really good point, because that's kind of the difference
I'll eat that.
between some, how fans process the game versus how a coach processes the game versus how players process the game, right? Because I think we can sit here, and somebody actually brought this up earlier about how they thought maybe Coach Rule was treating Dylan Raiola with kid gloves a little bit.
Oh, my man, Denny.
And I sit there and I go, okay, was he perfect? Absolutely not. But we just mentioned how he's 2 plays away, 2 catches away from being over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. Right, which is, we all would have lost our minds, right? We're lost it, and
they would have scored on all but 1 or 2 possessions,
right? And he, I think, has, where we kind of landed was, okay, he's not perfect, but he's got the mindset that Coach Rule is looking for. So it's really,
that's what I think we hear. I don't think Coach White was anointing him. Maybe he was. I don't know. Yeah, that's not the impression so when Coach White said, when we have a freshman playing his ass off, I looked at that like, this guy is exceeding our expectations. He's playing well enough to win us games, let alone keep us in games. Significantly better than a year ago. We got to hold up our end of it. I didn't hear, hey man, he's like he's untouchable, or the gold. What's the joke? The golden
child.
Yeah,
whatever.
That wasn't my takeaway from that. My takeaway was
he's doing enough to.
He's doing enough where we need to be better.
Yeah, it's a result. It's a results based. It's a results based system, and
sacred cow.
The fact the winner loss, can be decided on these little tiny. These little tiny factors, like, did a receiver come down with the ball in the end zone? Did the quarterback overthrow somebody by 2 feet? These kind of things, don't necessarily change the way that a team should assess the way that how it played in a game, but it totally changes the way that we view it in the aftermath because this is also results based. I mean, we don't even talk about, like, I think take the stuff aside that you guys mentioned on the 2 potential touchdowns taken away. Nebraska comes out, gets a defensive stop to start the third quarter. Dylan hits a big throw, I think, to Isaiah Nair, gets him up near midfield, and it's 17-10. And they get in a situation on like a 3rd and 4, and Illinois made a nice little breakup over the middle. If that pass is completed, like if they can find a way to get that first down and roll to a touchdown, it's 24-10, and I think the game's over at that point. And the defense plays. Yeah.
I said last night on Big Red Wrap Up, there was a point. Mitch, I went from being mad at you to like, I'm cool. There was this point where I felt like Illinois was about out. Like, for all the talk we said after the game about what they were and their game plan and Bielema is this and that, there was a stretch for about 6 minutes where I'm like, if Nebraska scores, Illinois is going to tap. I felt just like that when they didn't convert that third down. I'm in 100% agreement.
This is where they need to remember what Bud Crawford told them, because what would he do in that situation? He's getting the knockout punch.
Nighty-night.
Yeah.
Put him to bed.
And they, whatever you got to do, bring him in again, man. Because I mean, he got that message across against Colorado, and then when they were in that moment, they delivered the knockout punch, and they had a chance right there in the third quarter, I thought, to give Illinois an uppercut, and it would have been over. And the next time they're in that situation, maybe they'll remember Bud's words and execute it.
So when you're talking about a Tuesday and it's West Lafayette, did you get the sense that the players are ready to move on to Purdue?
Well, we kept asking them about Illinois, so
so that's what I'm just curious what you feel like. Did you feel like they were ready to move on?
Yeah, I think that they're ridiculously ready. Like there were a couple guys, maybe it was Dylan, somebody else, Isaac Gifford, I think, talked about just like he needed to get away. He needed to get away for a day, and they didn't like the extended weekend that they had to sit and stew over that. So yeah, I think that they're raring to go and move on to the next thing, so everybody can stop talking about it and they can win. That's their plan, of course, and come home and be 4-1 and get back to normal of being a team that's on its way to showing major improvement over what we've seen the last 7 years in Nebraska football.
That's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, great stuff as always. We'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, Mitch.
All right. Thanks, guys.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and, of course, KFOR in Lincoln for this third hour. You waving the white flag over there? What's going on?
Heck no.
Okay, you were.
So I strike you as the type of dude that would wave the white flag.
I didn't know what we were doing over there.
I'm a ding dong.
It's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook, best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Make sure you keep your money on the correct side of the river.
How can this thing float a boat?
Lincoln and Omaha, get to the sports books. You can do straight bets, parlays, in-game. You can do just about whatever you want, whatever your little mind can imagine. Props even. I don't know, DB's using props, making boats over here. Not sure. That's a different kind of prop, though. You can bet on nearly every major sporting event at Warhorse Sportsbook. Get to warhorsecasino.com for more details on all the events and stuff they have going on as well. You doing all right over there?
Yeah. I'm good.
You sure?
Yeah.
You gonna be all right?
Stank Nooner has a question.
Let's hear it. Stank.
No, Shane posted it. Can our offense be effective at running against the defense in the second half? Can our defense stop letting teams fall forward on third down for a first down? So,
both things I would like to see.
Here's the dirty little secret, though.
Mm-hmm.
I said this in the stream, and I'm going to say this out loud and for our folks in Lincoln. So, defensively, on first down, you typically stay relatively base, like base coverage, base front, not typically a pressure down.
Mm-hmm.
and standard coverage, because the playbook is
wide open
to the offense.
So you want to be as basic as possible to cover all possibilities.
You're pretty vanilla.
Yeah.
Dirty little secret. Ready? Nebraska typically plays first down a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
They may have to reevaluate what they do from like, let's say, average starting field position up until they have a tendency to change their defensive mindset.
Okay.
Because teams are winning on first down.
Mm-hmm.
That leads to
second and short, second and manageable,
high third down conversion rates,
which puts you in a bad position to get off the field on third down.
So we're looking at the wrong statistic, the right statistic, but for the wrong reason.
So we look at not being able to get off the field on third down, and instead of saying,
which was what, 7 of 13 or something like that.
So
and they were 2 of 3 on fourth down.
So instead of saying, hey, they need to get better on third downs, it's like, hey, no, they need to get better on first downs.
Yeah,
you don't end up in third and short.
What did Illinois run the ball for on first down? Because this is a Purdue thing. This is definitely a key, and I'll get to that when we talk about Purdue tomorrow. I believe Illinois, Fagan had 12 for 69.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he had the 23-yard run.
First play overtime.
And overtime.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's 11 for 40 basically before that.
In regulation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In regulation. Okay. McCray was 9 for 38.
Mm-hmm. Just right at 4 yards of carry.
Okay. Now, Lawfrey had the 4 for 30 on the little sweep, but that wasn't the power that everybody keeps
dominated at the line of scrimmage.
Talking about. That was kind of the speed sweep, and he was the scat guy. So, but what was happening was, for a team that had those rushing stats, Nebraska was still giving up over 5 yards a run on first down.
And that's the real problem.
That's the real problem. So
it's not all 5-yard runs are created equal.
Yeah, I hear what Stank is saying.
Because if you're on 2nd and 19 and get a 5-yard run,
Nebraska has to. That's where the tape, having film of the way, and it's on right now as we're looking at it. That's where they have to win.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a second half thing, but it's not a second half thing.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska has to decide how they want to play on first down to give them a chance to get off the field on third down. That's the real thing.
Is that
it just my opinion.
Is that a situation where
I'm waving? I'm like,
you'd have to no white flag this time though.
No. Does that make sense, Stank?
Is that a situation where you kind of have to decide?
That's
hey,
weird to call it. Dude. I'm just gonna call him a no. I don't want to say nooner.
Yeah, I think we gotta stick with Stank.
Okay, go.
Or S-Tank.
That, like, for me, that's the key. That's what we got to talk about when we say year 2 of Coach White and the evolution, because that's the game within the game. And here's the other little dirty secret. The coverages, they have to take a look at how the coverages match fitting in the run game.
Mm-hmm.
I know you kind of like you're kind of a man-to-man team, and you like to match and you pass stuff off. You may have to change some of the coverages you use to allow you to fit in the run game without having your eyes
get caught in the backfield.
So in man, they shouldn't be anyway.
Yeah.
So that's where the discipline comes in. Because if I'm in man-to-man, my eyes aren't in the backfield.
Yeah.
I am clearly reading my keys. If I've got number ones and I'm in man-to-man and they're in a 2-by and my number one goes to the bathroom, I'm going to the bathroom with him, right? I don't care that I get play action.
Yeah.
Right? So they'll have to talk about that a little bit. Those are things, that's what practice is for. Hey, maybe when they're in a 3-by and you get back to you, maybe we want to combo it like this. Maybe we don't want to play it like that. Historically, we've played it like that. We've seen a lot of the same side 2 pressure. They'll bring a gap and a D gap blitz from the same side overload. You may have to vary that up. Maybe you have to, because I know it's like there are certain pressures we like. We fall in love with
tendencies.
Yeah.
Everybody does. Everybody has tendencies.
We do. So. And Coach Samanji will inevitably say, hey, you're not getting home. What about this? And that's when you have to kind of
It's like everybody has pet plays.
Dang, are we falling into a rhythm here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like Nebraska with running the football.
Yeah, on offense.
So people want to blame the offensive line in the second half. Oh, we can't run the ball. Here's what Nebraska has to figure out. This is why I think you may see different back rotations. Again, this is just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But since this is the Bet On It segment, bet on it that Nebraska has I think they've self-scouted enough to know in second halves when they want to salt clock and Dowdell comes into the game, what are they doing? What are they doing in the second half when Dowdell comes back into the game?
They're running the ball.
They're running the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. What's happening in the second half when Ramir Johnson comes in the game?
They're throwing the ball.
They're throwing the ball.
Most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are the things where you got to look at it and say, yeah.
Can we mix that up a little bit?
And if you do, how does that help? Because those guys have tape too. You think we don't form? We're not even smart at the high school level. Like, you think we don't form? You think when Central gets in a 2x2 and they're in a pistol set that I don't think I have a tendency they're going to run?
Yeah.
Those guys are good too up there, right? And so those are the little things that can help you in the run game. That's why all doesn't have to be lost. Like, it doesn't have to be like bleak and super doom and gloom and, oh, we can't do this and sad as this and the offensive line is that and the defense is like, the beauty of this sport is you get to adjust and you get to self-scout. It's like, if I want to run the ball better in the second half, I may sometimes go with safe pass plays on first down, right? Because when I get in this formation, Sat just told you what we said on Monday. Look, 2 back, near eye, with Linnemeyer as the H-back, that almost always has either been split zone or duo. I bet you it's like a 90-some% tendency.
Yeah.
Right? So play action, dude's wide open. Oh, your players aren't on the field. Listen, that's just football, man. We're just looking for something to bitch about. But the design was good. But you can't let your QB off the hook for not making that play.
Yeah.
And be mad at who's in the game.
Yeah.
Like, why are we doing? Those are the things that are frustrating. Right? Because
at the end of the day,
they need each other.
Dylan's just got to make that throw. Yeah. That's it. It's a good call.
And again, for as disgruntled as we sometimes appear to be with sequential stuff, if he ends up going 29 or 35 with 5 TDs, it's like,
and 340 yards or whatever.
Or they get one more score when they're up 7. Yeah. When Illinois only had 3 points.
Yeah.
Because there was clearly a stretch, and maybe it's just me because I'm the eternal optimist. But didn't it feel like Illinois was going to have a hard time getting in the end zone for 2 quarters?
What's one of the first thing I said on Monday is I thought there was a stretch where Nebraska was going to pull away. It's one of the first things I said. I thought there was a stretch where Nebraska was.
It scored late in the third.
Yep.
Fourth.
Yep.
And OT.
Yeah. 1 touchdown quarter. That's it.
Yeah,
I thought there was a stretch where Nebraska was going to pull away.
I want to be optimistic because I think they know what they're doing. Now, the key is, how are they going to run the ball in West Lafayette without QB run game?
And that'll be interesting to see.
Because handoff run game for Nebraska does have to get better.
And bet on this, at some point as Nebraska fans, we're going to have to be okay with short passing game, substituting some of that running game.
Yeah. Coming
up next, we'll wrap up the show.
God bless him.
You love you some MJ Sherman.
Do you know why I love that, though?
Why?
Full disclosure.
Go ahead.
I told this story, so I'm not going to tell the story of the why, but I'm going to land the plane on how I wish I had that kind of wisdom without having to go through the hurtful lesson. UCLA 1993.
Yep.
Everybody singing my praises after Texas Tech. Outrush Bam Morris, local kid, Star is Born, blah, 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 blah. Guess what? Immature.
Stop doing the things you need to do.
19. I don't even remember the game plan that week going into UCLA. First game, national TV on grass. Man, I'm rolling. Nope. Bad. Sorry as poop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't have the luxury to fix it the next week. I was replaced real time by a guy that's more talented. The rest is history. But I tell myself, that ain't happening again. So for me, attention to detail and going, that's why I go back to the muscle memory thing. You sometimes think you're doing things correctly or at a decent level until you meet somebody that does it better, right? There are times where I felt like, yeah, you may be 2 years ago, North Platte. I felt like we were pretty physical at the line of scrimmage until we played North Platte.
Then you're like, oh, nope, guess not.
Got it. We got to practice different.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so like those things, they happen. So when the players real time can sound a lot like a coach and say, hey, you may feel like you're doing things right on Saturday and Sunday. Like when you say, oh man, I was in my iPad. I was in my iPad on Sunday. Were you?
How in your iPad were you? Right.
Like, how do we not know the difference between a front side handoff and when they run zone? Like, okay, when he's on when it's the same side handoff, and I'm at the second level, that flow right now is direct. It's not slow flow or whatever their terminology is. So that means I better probably fit it quicker, right? Or when Altmaier steps up into the pocket, which way does he typically like to go? Is he a step up to throw guy, or is he a step up guy to get lateral? Yeah. If he's a step up guy to get lateral,
which way is like to bail out of the pocket?
I have to slow my pass rush down. I can't get as vertical, right? We do this little thing called, it's a hula hoop. It's a big old hula hoop, like little kids use, and they do that little shaky thing. Like we'll circle that hula hoop so we can bend and get flat, right? Those guys, guess what I bet they worked on this week? Bending and getting flat, getting back underneath on a pass rush versus
push the outside.
I ran right on by, right? Play's not over. He's scrambling. See, those are things that to go back and work on, right? Nash was getting double teamed like a mofo, right? Okay, so you're going to look at that and say, okay, listen, when we're in this front and they get a good down block and they're going to try to get the second level and you're going to get this double, this is how we have to fit it now out on the second level. He's not making that play anymore when he was single blocked because in this scheme, they get to do this. See, that's the beauty of coaching. It doesn't have to be like, hey, man, I was able to make a living just collapsing the pocket because this quarterback wasn't scrambling to make a throw. No, you saw a guy that was scrambling to make a throw. So you have to rush those guys different.
Yeah.
But you don't know.
Until you know.
Until you know. Yeah. But the only real key to learning is knowing what you don't know. So as long as I can hear guys talk like this, and I believe they're being sincere, this certainly isn't coach speak. Because you can tell in his delivery, he's like, look, guys, the goddamn sky isn't. He said it 5 times.
Irritated.
5 different ways. Don't need to make wholesale changes. I don't. Not only do we not need a motivational speaker to come in, I don't want one.
Yeah. They know what they need to do.
They know what they need to do. So let's just see if they get a chance to go out and do it.
They'll have an opportunity with Mockabee.
Yeah, listen, his coming out party was against Nebraska
2 years ago.
You think they shouldn't be lathered up to shut this? Full disclosure, like
they should want to shut him down just
Purdue,
as much as
top 5 in the Big Ten in rushing the football.
Yeah.
They got a nice little tandem. Now they can't throw it in the ocean right now.
Yeah.
But you have got to get guys to the ground. It starts by winning on first down. Win on first down. You let Illinois go 19 carries for 5.5 per carry on first down.
Yeah.
That's not a made up number. So why I'm a big third down conversions rate guy, man, you better start winning on first down. Because if you don't get those guys behind the sticks, the whole playbook is open.
Your chances to hold them on 3rd and 5 are a lot better than it is on 3rd and 1.
Yeah.
Like that's not rocket science.
So
but how do you get to 3rd
remember
and 1?
the play where Altmaier scrambled and it was inside the 15 and he scrambled and it looked like, oh shoot, he's going to get the first down. And I think Nash or Ty wrapped him up from behind. Then he was still short. It was a turnover on downs. That's because they had more than 3 yards to go.
Yeah.
But if it would have only been 3 yards,
first down,
he would have scrambled for the first down.
Because it was, I think it
was 4th and 5, maybe 4th and 6.
I thought it was like 4th and 8.
Maybe.
But he got like 5.
Yeah.
Ends up being 3 yards short. You're like, okay, done. But you know what allows that to happen? By doing your work on the previous downs.
Having more yards to go. Nebraska's the real cat and mouse this week will be, can Nebraska keep Purdue from winning on early downs?
I mean, how many times have we seen on every level of football,
You know what we're calling on first down? Probably base warrior. We probably are.
So if you're,
I mean, short of them being at a distinct disadvantage at field position.
I wanted to ask this in the last, or when we were talking to Mitch, but what do you give up if you're Nebraska and you're in the 3-3-5 and you're like, hey, we need to be a little stouter on first down runs? What are you giving up in order to do that?
Intermediate passing game.
Okay, so that kind of middle of the field.
Yeah, because this that was aggravating me all week too. Oh, Nebraska's poor. You can't tackle. They can't this. You know what? Do you know what makes you be a bad tackler?
What's that?
Having
position.
Having guys with a two-way go, and you have to fit in the run game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm old and my knees hurt, and I get my ass whipped in practice in high school, so this is probably an exaggeration. But there are times I feel like I could get 5 yards there.
Yeah.
Because it's a two-way go with a short edge in the open field. It's hard to tackle anybody like that.
Mm-hmm.
So Nebraska can say, okay, hey, listen, in a 3-by-1, if they motion and they want to run, I'm just going to use a play like split back, like they want to run duo.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we box this for our insides? They won't have as far to run.
Mm-hmm.
We can extend this edge a little bit, and I can fit in the run game quicker versus we spill all the time to the next man over. Oh, we're not very fleet of foot tonight, or we're a little slow to trigger. So those are the things, and you're not getting there, right? So those are things that you can do differently. Maybe you can't run as many games up front with your D-line. Maybe you have to play a little bit more base and say, hey, listen, you just own B-gap. You own C-gap. It's not cute, and it's not fun, and it's not super intricate, but maybe you do that. I don't know. These are just examples of, well, they can't tackle this team. Like, stop. I'm a much better tackler when I know the guy that's fitting inside me has used his correct shoulder, and I know the alley runner behind me is coming to smoking, so I can be a lot more aggressive when I get downhill.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm tentative because I'm out here in space with a guy with a two-way go, I'm probably not going to look like I'm good at tackling. That's what leads to leaky yardage. You know how you stop leaky yardage? Fit correctly with proper technique. How do you do that? Situationally, you have to understand what teams are trying to do to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Nebraska's taking ownership. They're not telling you Illinois isn't good.
Yeah.
They did have some good schemes.
Mm-hmm.
But
they're telling you if we fit better, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. If you feel no pressure, get flat. If you don't feel pressure and you get vertical, there's a reason it's easy. It feels easy.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they want you to go. So it's little things like that.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. That's. I just sometimes I go on these little mini rants because I just hate how we just like regurgitate these things we hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not blaming the people that are regurgitating as much as
the people who are initiating
that are disseminating the information, because those people have to understand, hey, these people may not know, I'm supposed to, so I need to make sure I'm in the know so I can stop. It's like the blind leading the goddamn blind.
Yeah.
Like, stop saying things you don't know about, knowing people are listening to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's my problem.
Or say, or say, hey, like, I'm in fan mode right now. Especially right after a loss, right? Like, hey, I'm a little emotional about what we just saw. Don't love it. Like, this is fan mode, as opposed to, and then it's kind of up to people to digest the information how they will. But like, I feel differently right after the game in the moment than I do a day later on the rewatch, or the day after that when I watch it the third time, right? Yeah. Like, you feel differently in the moment where you're like, man, they gave up that 23-yarder first play of overtime. They get sacked 3 times in a row. Like, yeah, you're pissed, right? Yeah. But then you feel differently when you go back and rewatch the game. You're like, okay, how did we get here?
100%.
Like, you can say, hey, this is the emotional response versus the logical response. And then you can leave it up to people to digest it however they will. But, man, it's too hard. There's too much going on to let people just run around saying the same things that aren't necessarily true.
Don't panic. These guys know, they're well aware of the task at hand.
Absolutely.
And it's pretty advantageous. It's on the road.
We'll be back tomorrow with more Hurrdat Sports Radio.